this mitigated language kind of sort of, we see it a lot from, I think I don't know where it came from, but it's a softer, less definitive type of expression. People would actually say, I'm kind of excited. Well, when I was growing up, you were either excited or you weren't. But now,
Exactly.
like it's on a sliding scale. It was sort of thrilling. I don't get that.
Exactly. That's almost an example of an oxymoron,
Yeah,
to say sort of thrilling.
yeah.
Like it was either thrilling or it wasn't.
So
That
when I'm
makes
so
no
when
sense.
I'm in the front of the room teaching presentation skills, I say, which is it? Because I'm confused about, my brain is confused about what you just said.
Right.
Take a stand, man. Was it thrilling or was it not thrilling? And if it wasn't thrilling, don't use the word thrilling.
Right.
But for
Or don't
sure, it
use the
wasn't
word sort
kind
of.
of thrilling.
Yeah. And I think, right. So that's forcing the person to make a different choice about the main word they're really choosing. Is
Yes,
it appropriate or not? Is
yes,
it precise or not?
right.
Yeah. And
So
this
back to
also,
vocabulary again.
absolutely. And also this sort of kind of maybe a little bit kind of language takes us to that gender place.
Yeah,
Because in my experience, it's more common that women will use these fillers,
100%,
and it's diminishing. I call it diminishing language.
100%. It's like speaking in questions, like you're never
Yes.
sure of yourself. Also diminishing. Now, I'm going to get mail on this interview, and you will too. But here's how I defend the male. MAIL, uh, not the M.
MAIL.
Um, you used an interesting phrase earlier. You said it was referenced something about people speaking their truth, which is
Mm-hmm.
another phrase that wasn't around when I was growing up. Um, when I was growing up, there was one truth. Snow is white, right? Rain is wet. There was no argument about this stuff. But now everybody's got their own journey. That's another new thing to the lexicon.
Mm-hmm.
Their own truth. And I'm okay with truth being interpretive. I mean, it's the American judicial system is founded on that, right? That witnesses can see an event and interpret it in different ways. That's their truth, and they get on the witness stand to tell their side of what they think they saw. So I
Mm-hmm.
understand how this works. The challenge becomes then when people are communicating, say, in a business world about something that, like a fact, we were just talking about, do women tend to use mitigated language more frequently than men? There's research on it.
Mm-hmm.
Data points, all you letter writers. Some attorneys would call it proof, that women have certain patterns in there. Not all women, by the way, but
No,
enough to
not
show
all.
a pattern. Um,
Well,
and
and
it's
it's not
okay.
only in English that it happens. I'll throw in a cultural caveat here. I once read that Japanese women have to use 30% more words when they're trying to express themselves because of all of the times they have to apologize.
Oh my.
Yeah, I know the words for apology in Japanese to this day. I mean, many, many years ago that I was there, but it's gomenasai and sumimasen. And women in Japanese use these constantly.
Yeah.
It's because, sumimasen, gomenasai, can I say something here? Is it okay?
Yeah.
So in our culture, that kind of thing happens too. I would agree that it's not every woman, and women who have worked on their confidence and power and have learned to uh, cull these words from their vocabulary
Right.
don't use them.
Right.
But it is a tendency.
And there are men who soften their language and maybe make their position less clear by using mitigated language. These qualifiers like sort of, kind of,
Or
about.
maybe, like maybe we should take this course of action.
Yeah.
Well, should we take this course of action or shouldn't we?
Yeah. Because when you leave off the word maybe, it becomes more of a directive or an instruct,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Which can serve you better if you're trying to curry influence with a committee, for example, a group of people.
And it becomes a suggestion, doesn't it?
Yes.
If we say maybe we should do this, it's a suggestion as opposed to a directive. Yeah,
It's like you're soliciting buy-in or permission.
for sure. So there's a place for that. Yeah,
How about this one? I bet you don't like this one either. Can I ask a question?
right.
Same thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, it weakens the asker
Yeah.
for
Now
sure.
there are, if a bunch of people are talking and you need to interrupt, I think it's
Right.
appropriate to say, "Excuse me, may I offer some input?" Which is similar kind of a phrase. But that's etiquette. You know, that's not going to hurt you or take points away from
Right.
your argument.
It's better than running people over to interrupt them.
100%. Yeah. So you mentioned gender, and this, of course, happens in the workplace. We know there's still a very much a glass ceiling for women in the workplace. There's a huge push right now in a bunch of organizations and companies about uh, inclusivity and and what are these, diversity, you know, all
Diversity and
these ways
inclusion.
to kind of
Mhm.
level the playing field. But my opinion is that it seems to me that women, as an example, and we can talk about other groups the same way. Maybe we'll get to millennials in just a second, because you could make an argument for every demographic. Even white males have issues, God knows. But in a workplace, if do you think it would be good if women could somehow stop using this type of mitigated language and speaking in questions and
Yeah,
deferring, these deferential kind of mannerisms that they have? In Japan, I guess you could never say to Japanese women, "Stop apologizing so much," because it's cultural. Maybe our issues here are cultural as well.
well, I think in Japan, probably that has changed over the last 40 years. Japanese women may use less apologetic language than they did back in the day. So
Yeah.
that may have moved on.
Okay.
I think what's tough for women, so there are all kinds of things that go into this, and one of them is corporate culture, what's acceptable, and what comes down from the top as being the way we communicate around here. And is it a more masculine style of communication, or is there room for alternative ways of communicating? A feminine style would be one, but people of color have other ways of communicating as well. So, how much space do you leave in that corporate environment for alternatives in the communication style? That's one thing that occurs to me in this circumstance.
Yeah.
Another big thing that plays into this is intonation pattern. Because if you've got the sort of kind of a little bit stuff going on, plus you're ending a lot of your sentences in an up intonation. My name is Barbara Boldt. My company is Bold Global, right? That's a questioning intonation that further undermines people's credibility
Yeah.
when they're speaking. So,
It's hard to be an authority when you're never declarative, when you're always
right.
asking the question. I agree 100%.
And this is something that non-native English speakers struggle with, because like from Italian, French, or Spanish, they're used to much longer phrase construction. So I have a whole handout on this actually, that they don't use full stops nearly as often as we do. They use the semicolon. So
Uh,
they're used to thinking more than one idea in a phrase. Like it goes on and it goes on. So when they speak in English, they're using up intonation because in their mind, they're not done yet. They're not finished with their idea.
yeah.
So they stay up on the intonation, and you have to teach them.
Well, we see that in English as well. People
You can see it.
putting
Yeah.
ideas forth in meetings and stuff, where they just seem to be working it out in real time, which I appreciate. I do that sometimes myself. But if you really want to seem like you have it together, it seems like there should be a beginning and an ending to your sentence. You
Absolutely.
know,
Yeah.
otherwise it's going to be hard